I seek you. The more I seek you, the more I find you. And the more I find you, the more I love you. I wanna sit at your feet, drink from the cup in your hand, lay back against you, breathe, feel your heart.
Right.
And this love
Welcome in,
so deep.
and you are watching the Burning Power Show, where you are required to love yourself. And I am Dr. Sonny Alonzo Dotson. And what a wonderful day it is to be in continual celebration of the grace and the mercy of God. Because I don't know if you know it or not, but the mere fact that we're taking a breath is God's grace. And the mere fact that we're able to rise in the morning and lay our heads down to rest at night is God's mercy. And not only is it God's mercy, it is time that has been loaned to us. And you know, God was speaking to me because I've been up the majority of the night. I couldn't rest because I got up and God told me to get on here at 5 a.m. because it is in the morning hours that the seeking power is most present. Before the sun rises and before the sun sets. And he told me that I needed to get a reminder out there that this is time that has been loaned to us. And it is therefore precious time. And I'm in the business of reminding us just how precious that time is. And we don't need to spend another second doubting ourselves. And we don't need to spend another second sacrificing our truths on behalf of others. Because this is time that God has loaned to us. And we need to spend every minute of every waking hour appreciating ourselves and valuing ourselves and getting about the business of doing the work required to get us there so that we can become whole and full. And so this is an hour that we're in the seeking power of God. And we're in the seeking power of the multitudes and the dimensions of ourselves that we've been unafraid to face. And so thus we get to the topic of today's show, which is going to be the first of a series of shows that I'm going to be doing on what is to be called the Spiritual Confinement series. The last show that I did was on the topic of spiritual confinement and being in the throes of that spiritual confinement. And God told me that there is now a mandate on not only just understanding the scope of the spiritual confinement, in the pursuit of getting people into the real knowledge and into the real journey of what's actually happening to us as we are in spiritual confinement. Thus, we have the spiritual confinement series that I will be administering to you all on the Burning Power Show. And it is going to be covering the 8 areas of penetration that I discussed with you all on the last show. There are 8 areas of penetration that are attributed to the spirit of spiritual confinement, or the facet of spiritual confinement. Thus, the entrapment of the spirit. And those 8 areas are going to be the 8 shows that I am going to be doing in the administering of the spiritual confinement series. And so today's topic, and therefore area of penetration, that we are going to be considering tonight, or this morning, or today, which is the time that God has loaned us, is going to be about the spirit of desolation. And the spirit of desolation is the first area of penetration that I need to speak to in regards to our healing and getting out of the throes of the spiritual confinement that we're facing. And each area of penetration is going to have paramount constituents that we are going to be looking into. Feel like I need to turn this down just a taste more, because I don't want it to interrupt your hearing about what's going on. But as I was saying, each area of penetration is going to have paramount constituents that we are going to be looking at. In other words, key components that we need to be looking into to get the awareness that we need in order to learn how to get ourselves out of the previous narration of our lives, and then step into and hone into the new playwright, which is going to be, furthermore, the destruction of the enemy out of our lives. And so, I want to talk about first, what desolation means, and the spirit of desolation. And desolation is the actual state of complete spiritual emptiness and destruction. So we have to get clear first on what it actually means to be residing in the spirit of desolation. So that's first, defining it. Therefore, a spiritual definition of desolation is to be in a spiritual state of spiritual emptiness and self-destruction. So we have to get clear that the enemy is trying to get us completely empty. And then once he successfully does that, his mission is to destroy us. So that is the very premise of the spirit of desolation. And now that we have a definition of desolation, I want to break down the experience of being in the spirit of desolation. And the whole experience of being empty and looking into the face of self-destruction. Because let me get clear about one other point before I get into the first paramount constituent of the matter of dissolution, we want to get clear about the fact that Satan is in the business of utilizing you as the defining fault and the downfall of your existence. Did you just hear that? He is in the business, Lucifer himself, of utilizing you as the defining fault and why you're going to come into the ultimate destruction of your life. So not only is he trying to destroy you, but he's trying to hold you responsible for the downfall. And so I just wanted to get that piece of information out there for you as well. That he is trying to get you to answer not only to the account of your life, but he's trying to get you to account for his representation and his influence in your downfall. So that in the end of it, Satan is blameless. So I really need you to hear what I'm saying. And I really need you to get the severity of the affliction that is on your life right now. Because this right here is serious business. Because your very life is at stake. And that's why God told me before I got on this video, preparing for 5 a.m. seeking of the unsearchable realms of God, so that I can impute what I need to impute into this televised broadcast. This time is loaned to us. And so now I want to get into the first paramount constituent of the area of penetration that we're talking about today, which is the spirit of desolation. Number one, first paramount constituent is there is a plight of Satan. There is a plight of Satan. And what is a plight? It is the propositioning of one's faith and one's loyalty. It is the propositioning of one's faith and one's loyalty. So that is number one in the paramount constituents of Satan, of the areas of penetration. Excuse me, I didn't want to mess that up. It is number one. And that constituent is the plight of Satan. And it is his mission and his proposition to overthrow your faith and your loyalty in God first, which is a submission into your faith and loyalty in yourself, and therefore turn that faith and that same loyalty around to get you to submit to the doctrine and the belief in Satan. So we need to get that understanding that is the first paramount constituent of the area of penetration that we're discussing. That there is in fact a plight of Satan for the propositioning of your faith and your loyalty in God, which would be therefore in yourself, and then turn that around and indoctrinate your faith and indoctrinate your loyalty in the pursuits of Satan. So that's number one. And then stemming down from number one, we get to the second paramount constituent of the spirit of desolation. And that is the experience of spiritual abdication. It is the experience of spiritual abdication. And what is abdication? It is the spiritual experience of the renouncing of the throne of God. It is the spiritual renouncing of the throne. And we have to understand that the renouncing of the throne of God is the dismantling of your rightful heirs to the possession of your power. Because we must remember that for Satan to do anything to you, he has to come before God. So there is a representation in heaven in the pursuit of your downfall, which means there is favor over your life. And then there is the account of the experiential warfare that we face. So therefore we get to paramount constituent number 2, which is the experience of spiritual abdication. So Satan is in the business of dethroning you. He is trying to dethrone you from the very existence of your life. And then after he dethrones you, that is the first act that is going to, it is going to reroute you in the stipulation and the whole experience of failing to fulfill your holy responsibilities. And what are you doing? What are you doing when you are failing to fulfill your holy responsibilities, which is therefore the work of God that he has made manifested in you? What are you therefore doing? You are now therefore forfeiting, thus unaligning yourself with your truths, and thus therefore unaligning yourself with the route that you must take. So he is therefore, let us break this down. He is therefore renouncing you, which is getting your brain and your psyche and your consciousness to believe a proposition truth, therefore allowing you to dethrone yourself. Because anytime we're separating from God, we are therefore dethroning ourselves. Because anytime we separate ourselves from God, we're separating our spirit from ourselves and our truths. And then once he does that, we can't do anything but fail to fulfill the promises of our lives. Okay, so now that we have that understanding, we want to get into number 3, which is the third paramount constituent. And if you need breaking down or layman's terms of that, we are talking in terms of key components in the spiritual experience and in the spiritual fight of the spiritual confinement series of the first area of penetration, which is the topic of this show, the Spirit of Desolation. And so now that I broke that down again for anybody out there that's wondering what a paramount constituent is, number 3 is the imprisonment experience. So this is the area where he has now begun the process of imprisoning you in your spirit. And while you are in the experience of being imprisoned, there are going to be a number of 5 feelings of self-destruction or acts of self-destruction, because this is the phase of the journey that you are getting to, the processing of Satan in you to self-destruct. And I want to be very clear when we get about the business of the spirit realm. Because people are out there, if you think for a second that Satan is not skillfully cavorting through this earth realm, then you're sadly mistaken. Because Satan is skillfully intelligent. And he is skillfully cavorting and roaming about this earth. So if you think that he has not articulated and worked his way through every avenue for your downfall, then you need to get about the business of really hearing what I'm telling you right now. And I'm not talking to the people that are out there still doing all of this. Well, I'm guessing this and wondering that. And judging this and opinionating that. Because this has nothing to do with that. This is very real in this hour. And this is for the people that are needing help. And this is for the people that are refusing to stay down. And this is for the people who understand that their very lives are at stake. And who are refusing to be a representation any longer of a pseudo-based life. And depending on the heirs of darkness, which are the opinions and the judgments of other people. Because they didn't drop you here. And the technicality of it all is they can't leave you either. So, hashtag that. They didn't conceive you, nor can they kill you. Second hashtag of prophetic awareness. They did not conceive you, and they shall not kill you. Now you hear that piece of information right there. So whoever is to, do whatever they do, they did not conceive you. God conceived you. And he will be the end all be all to the orchestration of your life. And now let's get back down into that third paramount constituent, which is the imprisonment experience. And I was talking about the 5 areas of feelings that you will experience in the self-destruction phase. Number 1, there will be feelings of avoidance. Number 2, there will be feelings of rejection. And number 3, there will be feelings of abandonment. Abandonment of self, abandonment from others. Number 4, there will be a resignation from our lives. The retiring from our truths. A resignation. You are therefore giving yourself a resignation notice to the will to keep on living. And then number 5, a lack of self-acceptance. There is a refusal of self-acceptance. Because once you lose the will to keep going, and once you lose the will to keep living, you are no longer in the area of self-acceptance. You've given that up, and you relinquished your rights to your own life. And people, I need you to hear how important this is. And this is the phase of the journey here, where you are now therefore imprisoned in the spirit. And so, number 4, we're getting to here, which is the 4th paramount constituent of the spirit of desolation. Desolation. I don't want to misconstrue that word. not disillusion, but desolation. Number 4 would be the betwixting of our internal image. So it's the betwixting of our internal image. This is number 4 of the paramount constituents. That Satan is in the business of now betwixting himself into the sifting through your internal image, your internal parts, the inside of you. Because nothing about Satan's work is external. It is all about getting inside of you. So he is in the business of betwixting. And somebody out there may be asking, what do you mean by betwixt? The very definition of betwixt is to get in between something. So Satan is about meshing and getting all in between. He'll sift himself all through your organs. He'll sift himself all through your spirit in every area that he can get into. He's about the shifting and the betwixting of the internal image of yourself. And this is why you have people out here continuing to question their worth. This is why you have people out here continuing to question the right to the decision making and the power of their existence. This is why you have people out here believing that their opinions and their judgments are the end all, be all of you, which is impossible. Because Satan is about the business of betwixting himself in the internal parts of you. And this is stage 4. And this is paramount constituent 4 of the spirit of desolation. And then once we get into the area of the betwixting of our internal image, how we see ourselves and how we experience ourselves, there are areas that are of a concentration to Satan that I felt I needed to point out and get you educational clarity about what Satan is doing to you. And they are all misrepresentations of who we are. And that is what I am calling them. They are the misrepresentations of who we are, which is the falsehood of our truths. And so we're going to get into misrepresentation 1. He is going to misrepresent our character. Number 2, he is going to misrepresent our discipline, our self-discipline. What we have the power to do and do not do. Then he is going to misrepresent our restraint, our will to say no. That's why we're always feeling like people are using us. And you know what? And not to say that they're not. Because you can do a good thing for somebody and they still believe that they're using you. Happens all the time. It's happened to me several times throughout my life. But the fault in our character is the restraint power. Because Satan is jeopardizing our restraint power. That's why we're talking in terms of the betwixting of our spirits and in the internal image that we have about ourselves. And then he is going to misrepresent our essential being. Our essential being, who we are really. When you talk in terms of a full scope and a full perception of who we are, essential. Getting to the core of who we are. From the womb of our existence. And then there is going to be a misrepresentation of our self-distinguishment. How we distinguish ourselves and separate ourselves from other people. Which is why we have a lot of people out here miscalculating their truths and putting themselves up and sizing themselves up against others and judging themselves against the character of other people and judging their worth against the worth of another person. Why are we doing that when we are our own person? And we all have talents and we all have gifts. And the question of it is whether or not you're going to utilize those talents and utilize those gifts. And you know why? Because we are in the spirit of desolation. And there is a betwixting stage in Satan's hierarchy of evils. Which is why I have to break this down for you. And this is why there is a series on spiritual confinement. Then thus we get down to the misrepresentation of the shifting of our psychological inner parts. And this is a very powerful one right here. Because a lot of people, anytime you say internal parts or inner parts, people are always thinking of the external. But or maybe even also the internal when you're talking in terms of organs. But when you're talking in terms of the spirit realm, even organs are external. And we have to get an understanding that there are inner parts to our spirit. And this is a huge truth postulate for you to take tonight. That there are very much so inner parts to our spirit realm, which is why there are several dimensions, as I keep stating, and several mazes that we face in the fight of the enemy. And there is a real betwixting, which is Satan getting all in there and turning everything around and twisting it backwards and forth so that you can't see anything that's coming before you nor behind you, nor from left to right, because you're betwixt it in the spirit of evil. And I'm not talking about an evil that people, make up and put in their religions and all. Well, you do this and don't do that and don't. No, we're talking about a real evil, people. I'm talking about meeting Satan himself. I'm talking about meeting Lucifer. I'm not talking about an opinion. I'm not talking about somebody sitting up with opinion somewhere. I'm talking about seeing Satan. So you know what? And then for that last part that we're getting to, which is in the misrepresentation phase, which is the betwixting of your spirit, we're getting to the dismantling of our center. So we have to understand that once he misrepresents our character and takes our discipline away from us, and then takes our restraint power from us, and then thus misrepresenting our essential being, the truths of who we are, and then dismantling our self-distinguishment, and then betwixting and getting himself all up into the shifting of our psychological inner parts, our psyche, our consciousness, our spirit. Then here's about the business of dismantling our center. So we are in the complete shattering phase of our lives. He is shattering us and scattering our brains all about the earth realm. And this is why you have a lot of people out here, doing all this coping. And using, and I'm doing drugs, and I'm having sex, and I'm doing whatever. And guess what? I'm not saying this for judging, because guess what? I'm guilty. I'm not sitting up here judging people. I'm not in the business of judging people. I'm talking about why we do what we do. Because I had sex or did whatever. I'll be the first one, because I am no judge. I'm not going to sit on a televised program and pretend like I'm somebody I'm not, like you see a lot of these people doing. I am a servant of God that is being loaned time in the earth realm experience. But I am therefore a spirit that is the descendant of God that was imputed into this earth realm to serve him and to get people out of spiritual confinement. You got people sitting up here talking about, no, we're all guilty. We all have a vice. We're all doing things that presumably shouldn't be done, right? Because of societal terms and religion-made laws or whatever the case. But until you get about the business of a real experience, then there is no wholeness for you. And let me get back here to, I got off topic. Not too far off topic, but I just want to get back to the lesson here of the first area of penetration. Because this here is serious business. And I need you to get that. And that's why I'm being very transparent tonight. And any other broadcast that I'm on. Because I am about the business of keeping it completely real. I hear a lot of people talking about keeping it 100. Well, let me tell you that we need to keep it 100%. Since people are in the business of talking percentiles, let's get about the business of talking about the truth postulates. And why we're going through what we're going through. And how we're going to get out. Okay. And so once he has dismantled our center, which is the core of us, and stripped us of our dignity, and stripped us of the intentions of our psychological pathways, which are the portals that are allowing us to get into the truths of God, he is now in the business of taking us to the last area, the last paramount constituent of the area of penetration that we're talking about tonight, which is the spirit of desolation. We are getting to number 5 in the paramount constituents. And that one is Satan's postulation. Satan's postulation. That's right. Satan's postulation. And that is the full manner of the destruction phase. Because we have to understand that everything that's happening to us is connected to a war that's been waged. And so once we get to Satan's postulation, which is the experiential and existential pattern of his work, which is the falsehood and or misrepresentation of a truth, which he therefore then tries to qualify to himself as evidence of self-reproach and the refute of God's truth, which he is trying to do through you, and therefore utilize you as the fault and why you are going to be in the face of destruction. Therefore, destroyed, out of the imprisonment and out of the self-confinement. and the spiritual confinement that you're facing. And so, Satan's postulation is number one, getting us to a place inside ourselves that we are of a complete vacantness. That is the number one goal, that we are completely vacant, completely empty. This is why we have a lot of people feeling like there is no hope left. And there is no desire for hope. And there is no will for hope. Because now at this point, we have become a vacancy to ourselves. And if we become a vacancy to ourselves, what do we become? A vacancy to God. Now let me press this. Let me see. That's the battery. Of course, every time you're trying to do anything, here goes the battery. But that's okay. I've got 20%. I've got time. And so, after we become vacant, he is in the business of proving, right? Because everything from Satan is about proof and validity, because he has none. And so he is trying to attain evidence of his ability to engulf us with hollow intentions. So the goal is to engulf us with hollow intentions. So he is in the business of taking the intentful. He is in the business of taking the intentful mission of our lives away from us. Because everything we do should be coupled with intent. There should always be intent to what we're doing. The intention of our character, the intention of how we distinguish ourselves, the intent behind anything. As where we're getting power from. And so that's why Satan is trying to engulf us with hollow intentions and hollow spaces within ourselves. And then once he engulfs us with hollow intentions, meaning our expectations of our lives have become so low that we can't seem to pick ourselves back up off the ground. Which is getting back to being spiritually confined. He is then in the business of his postulation or belief in the fact that he has the ability to blind our significance and our self-sufficiency. And so he's in the business of trying to blind us and strip us or bear us of any covering of self and of God. So he is in the business of blinding us, which gets back to the propositioning and the questioning. Therefore, thus blinding us of our significance and our self-sufficiency. And that's why you have the experience of the feeling of feeling trapped and feeling confined. Because if if you do not feel self-sufficient, there is an impossibility that you are going to feel significant. And if you don't feel significant, who are you? Thus we have Satan and the whole pursuit of the questioning of your truths. And this is, my dear friends, the first area of penetration that we've worked on tonight, which is the spirit of desolation and the 5 paramount constituents to this area that we needed to work on, because we have to get a real deep understanding of what's happening to us in the spirit realm, and especially when it relates to spiritual confinement. And I just want to, before I get off the telecast tonight, go over those 5 areas and those 5 paramount constituents of the penetration tonight. There was first, number 1, the plight of Satan, which is to proposition or the questioning of one's faith and loyalty for the submittal to the indoctrination of Lucifer and the indoctrination of you submitting to his faith and his loyalty. And then there's number 2, the spiritual abdication, which is the dethroning of you. You have to be dethroned, and then the renouncing of you, and then the failure of your fulfilling the promise of your life. And then number 3 is the imprisonment experience, where thus you are therefore now able to be imprisoned in the spirit. And then you're going to have those feelings of destruction, which I talked to you about earlier in the show. Feelings of avoidance, rejection, abandonment, resignation from your life, and then the lack of self-acceptance that you feel from yourself and others. And then we get to number 4 of the paramount constituents, which is the betwixting of our internal image. That's number 4, the betwixting. And that's the operating of Satan, of betwixting inside of you, which is therefore getting in between your spirit and getting in between your inner parts and your inner man. And then number 5, Satan's postulation, which is the ultimate belief, the systematic belief of Satan, that is the operating force behind his works. And it is his belief and his own will, which is to overthrow the throne of God alone, which is the very war that we're facing. And so we have to understand that this is the first area of penetration that Satan is working on, and that therefore we have to begin understanding so that we can begin a work in ourselves of getting forward. After realizing that we are in the throes of spiritual confinement, and we are in the business of propelling forward, and we are in the business of getting out of the entrapments of the enemy. Therefore, getting out of the entrapments of our lives. And we are going to get about the business of seeing ourselves arisen and getting out of the distortion of self and the detachment from self. And that is what this is all about. As I've said to you before, this is not about a confinement of people or a telling of what people should or should not do. This is not some type of religion or man-made explanation. But this is for the empowerment of a people. And this is for the deciphering of where we're going in the journeys that we're in. And this is for the tenacity to get past where we've been and then get through what we're going through right now. for the releasing of the bondage of the psyche of a people. And this is for the spiritual consciousness and the awakening of a people. This is for healing. And this is for spiritual growth. So my dear friends, I thank you for tuning in tonight. And this is the first episode of the Spiritual Confinement series. And the topic of this series, of this penetration was the Spirit of Desolation, which is the first area of penetration that we covered tonight. The next one that we will be covering will be area of penetration 2, which will be the spirit of persecution. I will be getting on to do a televised program about that, which will be the second part. But remember that this show is about the mandate of the requirement for you to love yourself and the requirement of the work that we must do to get there. This is not about judgment. This is not about ridicule. This is not about what you should and you shouldn't do. This is about full acceptance. And this is home to where you can come to get a word of empowerment about your life and to get hope to keep on living. Because I remember the days when I felt like I couldn't make it. And I remember the days that I felt like I couldn't keep on living. And when I didn't have the will to keep going. But God saw to it that I'm sitting here tonight and that I'm taking another breath that He loaned me to tell you that there is a promise over your life. And there is a willpower that you have that's residing inside your heart and in your spirit tonight. And you can keep going. We just have to do the work that we are required to do to get there. And so I want to leave you with that tonight. And I'm going to turn this up for you. Because we're getting past the depravity. We're getting past that. We're getting past the hopelessness. We're getting past the depravity of Satan. We're getting past the mental torment of Satan. Oh yes, we're getting past the spiritual confinement of Satan. And we're taking control back over our lives. I speak that into my life. And then once I speak it with spiritual authority over my life, I impute it into yours by the might of God alone. My God. Nobody like you. That's right. There's nobody like God. And therefore, you have to understand that He created you. And there is nobody like you. That's right. There's nobody like you. And you just take that and you let that soak into your spirit today. I don't care what hour you tap this screen. I don't care what season of your life you tap this screen. God imputed this into this broadcast. My God. You're worthy. Because God said it. You're watching the Burning Power Show. And this has been the first installment to the Spiritual Confinement series. And this was the first area of penetration, was with the Spirit of Desolation. And And I'm Dr. Sonny Alonzo Dotson. And as I always say, I love you with the love of the Lord. God bless you. And you're going to make it out. You may be depressed right now. You may be feeling lonely right now. You may be feeling like everything you've done in your life, you haven't saw any fruit bear. But God saw fruit. Because did you not remember when you couldn't make it? Somehow you were able to cry your way out. And somehow you were able to get back up in the darkest hours that you faced. When you were sitting there alone and nobody heard your tears, God heard your tears from behind the immutable, unsearchable realms of God. In a heaven and in a throne you could not reach. God heard your tears. He saw you in the desperate hours, and He met you in the faces of the deep. And He saw to it that you're taking a breath right now. And that's why you're looking at this televised cast. Because God told you to press this button. And God told you that you were going to make it out of this hour. He saw to it that He would see your way out. And now, with the power of God that's invested inside your womb, He is imputing the truth of God inside it. And He is allowing you to see into a hierarchy that you had not seen before. That is of the will of God. And it is of the power and the tenacity of God that you would get out of the days of depravity. And I speak that into this broadcast tonight. By the work and the might of God alone. He needs no validity. My God. Yes. All right. I'm getting out tonight. I feel it. We can make it. Oh, yes. I'll see you guys next time. You be blessed. And you remember you're powerful. Just remember that you were created in the image of power. And you were created in the image of moving forward. God bless you.